Pentatonic scales are the first ones we learn and use. They are easy to sing, the melodies are easy to remember, and you can sing together, even different melodies, which always fit together because there can be no dissonance. Quite a few jazz students return to pentatonic scales after enthusiastically playing their way through the wildest 7- and 8-note scales, chromaticism, and whole tone scales. But don't pentatonic scales have much less expressive power than the usual 7-note scales? Well, pentatonic is much more than Old MacDonald had a farm. In this video, we want to present two ways in which pentatonic scales can be used to build exciting and highly expressive structures. Jazz musicians learned the second one from the Japanese. We'll come back to that. At first glance, one might say that a 5-tone scale is simply a subset of a 7-tone scale, even though historically, 7-tone scales were probably more of an extension of 5-tone scales. Major pentatonic scales are simply formed by removing the tritone from the diatonic scale. Although the rhythm, articulation, and dynamics can be varied, the harmonic sound remains transparent and relaxed. However, there are techniques for creating harmonic tension in a very simple way, for example by mixing several pentatonic scales. The first way to expand pentatonic scales is therefore a kind of counterpart to modulation, to changing keys in diatonic music. Vincent Persichetti explains it in his standard work on 20th century harmony. Diatonic scales of 5 tones are harmonically limited in scope because of the lack of semitones. All tones of a scale form a somewhat static chord. When melody and harmony are pentatonic, changing the modal versions of the pentatonic or moving from one pentatonic to another will help prevent monotony. And pentatonic melodies are often harmonized with foreign chords. Of course, this is a technique used in 20th century soundscapes or folk music. As mentioned above, pentatonic scales can be seen as subsets of the 7-tone scales that make up our everyday tonal material. 5-tone subsets can also be derived from more exotic 7-tone scales. Popular among jazz musicians is a selection from the so-called altered scale, the scale of jazz par excellence, which corresponds to a Japanese pentatonic scale, the Insin scale. In addition to the structure-forming tones of the root, third, and seventh, the altered scale combines all possible alterations of scale tones, minor and augmented seconds, tritones, and minor sixths. The altered scale is found on the 7th degree of the melodic minor scale, which consists of a minor fragment and a whole tone scale fragment. The Insin scale can be found by selecting the 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th, and 2nd notes from the altered scale in ascending order. The resulting scale has nothing to do with what our Western ears understand as pentatonic. It aims for expressive sonority. Mark Levine mentions the use of the Insin scale in jazz in his jazz piano book, and names McCoy Tyner and John Coltrane as two musicians who use it to improvise over altered dominant chords. Old MacDonald Had a Farm could sound something like this as an Insin variation over an altered dominant chord. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel. At academia-larty.org, you will also find a knowledge database and online courses from our academy. And check out the other videos here on YouTube. Thank you for your interest.